Alright, today we're going to be discussing consumer behavior. This is Module 4 in Blackboard. But before we go into the discussion, I wanted to go over the calendar of events like we do every week. This is week 9, March 8th. Hopefully you read Module 4 or scanned through it. Today you're going to work on the group project. I sent you an email last night with the project that you're going to be working on. Friday skills assistance. If you want to log into Skype and have a discussion about the midterm, I can give you a little bit more about what's going to be on it, but we're going to review it again or go over some things that you need to know for the midterm for next week. Post work, make sure you do Module 4 knowledge check before March 14th at 11:59 p.m. Otherwise, it's considered late. And also study for your midterm, which will be next week. Any questions? All right, so a little bit more information about the midterm. It's worth 15% of your grade. There are 20 multiple choice true or false questions worth 3.5 points each. There will be 3 short answers worth 10 points each. The total for the midterm is 100 points. I'll give you 90 minutes to complete the test. So once you come into class next week, you can just begin the test. I may even make it available. Yeah, I'll have to make it available 10 minutes before class to make sure that you have 90 minutes total. It will be located in Module 5. It's not out there right now because I made it unavailable. There's only one attempt for this test, and the test will be from, and I'll change this right now, from 10:20 to 12 p.m. next week. So just make a note of that. You'll have 9 minutes or 90 minutes to complete the midterm. Let's see. One thing I didn't mention last week, this is very important. Review the knowledge check questions for next week's midterm. Hint, hint. That's all I'll say. If you review those, you'll probably be fine on the midterm. Any questions? All right, so as I said before, we're going to be working or discussing consumer behavior for Module 4. When discussing consumer behavior, it's very important for marketers to fully understand the mental and social processes that are involved with choosing things with a product, like the product, making a purchase, picking between brands and choices, and actually using the product or service. Marketers must examine consumer behavior, which can be described or defined as the actions that a person takes when they purchase and or use a product or service. It's quite easy to assume that when a purchase happens, there's only one main step, but that's not true. When making a purchase, the buyer goes through 5 main steps. These steps are referred to as the consumer decision making, which were developed in 1910 by John Dewey. And they include, we're going to go over more in depth, but the first step is the problem or the need recognition. The second step is the search for information for that product or service. The third step is evaluation of alternatives. The fourth step is purchase decision, and the fifth step is the post-purchase evaluation. So as you can see on this slide, we're going to be discussing cell phones. And as I stated, the first step is the problem and need recognition step. During this step of the purchasing process, a problem or a need has to be recognized. A problem can be something as small as interviewing for a new job and realizing you don't have a suit to wear to the interview, or to making Thanksgiving dinner and needing spice for a pie that you're making, which you don't have. Problems, regardless of how small or large they are, create a need that can be fulfilled through a purchase. Marketing can be quite influential during this stage and can actually activate the decision-making process. By using advertisements, the advertisements can point out a currently owned product or service's shortcomings, or can help compare products. A combination of these tactics is often seen in cell phone commercials. You see here, if you don't remember the commercial, I think 5 or 10 years ago, the "Can You Hear Me Now" line, where Verizon poked fun at Sprint, saying that they have really bad reception. So when Verizon did these commercials, they were given a comparison to show why Verizon was more dominant than Sprint. If customers that use Sprint, if they didn't like the service or they felt that the service was inferior, they probably wanted to try Verizon or another company. So once that problem is recognized by Verizon or Sprint customers, the next step is the customer might want to do some research on Verizon if they're not currently already doing research on other companies. The Sprint customer, they're going to collect information about Verizon, any other competitors, T-Mobile, AT&T, and Sprint, and may look at some things like the plans or any type of reviews or things like that. So the consumer, they're going to conduct two different types of searches. The first one is the internal search, which is a search through a customer's memory of prior experiences they have already experienced with a product or a brand or a service. The Sprint customer may recall a prior experience using a work phone that was through a company like AT&T, or may also remember seeing some of these "Can You Hear Me Now" commercials from Verizon. When we make repeat purchases of a product, we may only need to conclude or conduct an internal search because we have a lot of knowledge and exposure of a certain brand. The second type of search is the external search. The external search is conducted when a consumer does not have enough knowledge about the brand or product and there's too high of a risk of making the wrong purchase. External information, like I said, is generally collected through online reviews, by talking to friends or family members, or by watching commercials through advertisements or through social media or through displays. You know, if you're in the mall or you're at a shopping center, you might see different stores. You might want to go in and check out some of the products that they have. So after you get through the information search stage, you move on to the third stage, which is starting to evaluate the alternatives. During this stage, it's time for the consumer to again evaluate the different options that they have, that they've gathered through their information search. The buyer is going to weigh their choices using different criteria that they specifically develop themselves. So for a cell phone, it's usually, you want to make sure that you have good reception, the data plan is reasonably priced, if they have a specific phone that you want, if that's available, as well as the cost. And then you just basically say if the reception, the data plan, and the phone available, you give it certain rankings in your criteria, and depending on which one has the highest ranking based off of your criteria, you may decide to select it. Once the alternatives have been evaluated, it's now time to actually make the purchase. While the product or service may have been determined, the customer still has some other decisions to make, such as where to buy the product and when do you want to buy the product. Some important elements customers may look at when choosing who to buy from include: is it easily accessible to purchase it in a store or online? Is it quicker to purchase it online? Maybe you get 1 day free shipping, 2 day free shipping. What's the return policy? If I don't like the product, can I return it without being charged a stocking fee? What are the payment options? Do you have to use are you able to use a credit card? Are the payments no interest? Do they allow you to do monthly payments? And then what are the current promotions that are going on? What are the discounts that they have available for new customers? These are some of the things that the customers think about, the buyers think about when they're actually ready to make the purchase. Now the next step, the fifth step, is the post-purchase behavior. After the customer purchases the product, they must determine whether or not the product meets, exceeds, or does not exceed or meet their expectations. Sometimes customers are dissatisfied, and when they are, the marketer has to analyze where the dissatisfaction is coming from. The marketing group or department must decide if the customer's expectations were too high, or if maybe the marketing or advertising overpromised the product's features or oversold the brand. Or was there an issue with the product? If there was an issue with the product, the actual product, the company may need to go back and redesign the problem or fix the problem by redesigning it. One of the most common post-purchase behaviors that can occur is cognitive dissonance, which is also called buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse describes a state of uneasiness that occurs in the mind of a customer right after they purchase it. I'm sure a lot of people have experienced buyer's remorse. I know I've experienced it several times. Regardless of the price, I've experienced it. This buyer's remorse can occur from a variety of reasons. One, maybe it's too many alternatives that existed. Another reason could be that the product or service was too high and they felt that it was too much that they paid for it. Another one is the item looked or worked one way in the store but did not work the same when they brought it home. So there's a lot of different reasons why customers get buyer's remorse. Marketers want to ensure that buyer's remorse is avoided, and they can do this by actually being truthful as possible when they're doing the advertisements, and just making sure that the customer understands what they expect versus what the product or service is going to give to them. Marketers have to create marketing communications that reinforce to new customers that they made the correct decision. It's marketing's job to make customers feel good about what they purchased before, during, and after the purchase. In turn, this might help the company or the customer become very loyal to the brand. It's important to note that customers do not always need to engage in every single step of the consumer decision-making process. Some of the steps can be eliminated or glazed over due to the involvement of the purchase to the customer. And involvement is the personal, social, or economic significance of the purchase to the customer. So we have two different types of involvement. You have your high involvement purchases, which are things like vehicles, homes, computers, and then you have your low involvement purchases, which is like toilet paper, milk, or toothpaste. For the high involvement purchases, those are the ones that are very expensive and have serious personal consequences or can impact somebody's social interest and directly correlate with the consumer decision-making process. If a marketer is in charge of a high involvement product, they should understand that the brand's customers are going to be loyal. So they have to make sure that they take care of it, and that if there are any problems, that marketer takes care of it immediately. For low involvement purchases, those are the ones that we constantly make. So they're more routine. They're not very expensive, and they do not have a huge impact on our image. Consumers do not need to fully engage in decision-making processes for these low involvement purchases. A high involvement purchase, like I said, it's like the car, and that would involve a little bit more of involvement from the consumer. Often marketers of these products will use free samples for low involvement purchases, or they'll give them coupons or free trials or even rebates to get the customers to try the product in hopes that they'll continue to keep purchasing them. They might even do advertisements on TV, radio, just to get you thinking about making those purchases. Because they're so low involvement, the customer won't necessarily do as much research or go through the 5 steps. Moving on to the group project that you'll be working on, you're expected to do questions number 1, number 2, number 4. Each question should be a minimum of 100 words. Make sure that you email me the Word document by 11:59 p.m. this evening, or it will be considered late. And in that document, make sure it has your group number, the members in attendance, the date, and the case name. There were a couple of group projects that were sent to me that did not have anything in the heading. It was just answers on it. So whoever the group members were for that group did not receive any points for that. And it's only because I don't know who was in the group meeting. So make sure you're following this heading so you don't get a 0 or you don't get points taken off. In addition, during the group meetings, I'll be available for one-on-one check-ins if you need to discuss anything in specific to your grade or any missing assignments. And then finally, as always, make sure you're doing your weekly journal entries. This is how you get to the weekly journal entry. Make sure that you're using the correct journal entry title, which is today's date, and it's a minimum of 50 words discussing what you learned today in the class and if there's anything that I need to review for next week's class.